welcome to Veterans Corner. I'm your host, Jay Stoyan. I'm with my co-host, Peggy Shepard. Hey, Peg, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Jay.
Excellent. We're very excited today. On the show today, we have veteran Shawn Jeffrey, the kind enough to come down to our office and tell us all about his career in the military and the civilian life. Shawn, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me.
This is great. Now, we talked a little bit about off-camera, and he has quite the extensive career in the military, but why don't we let Shawn tell us about how you got into the military and what interested you to get into the military, Shawn?
Well, it's interesting, and we had chatted about it, and it kind of leads into some of the things that I want to do to kind of give back. First and foremost, I was underprivileged. We didn't have a lot of money, and I was not necessarily headed down the right path. And it was a guidance counselor who pulled me aside and gave me a stern talking to, and had advised me that she was aware of some of the things that I was engaging in and the people that I was associating with, and then had pointed to a reserve unit down the road where I could get paid to do a whole bunch of things, arrange from getting out into the field and doing that sort of stuff, and dealing with explosives and getting to shoot a gun and all that sort of stuff. And as a young 16-year-old, I was like, that sounds pretty cool.
What year was that now?
That would have been early 1996.
Okay, so early 1990s. So myself, I'm probably a few years older than you, but I just want to relay this to you because as I was growing up as a teenager, I never heard anything from my school, my church, my elders, cops about military.
Okay.
Nothing. Like there was no option. Oh, join the military. So I'm just wondering. Because we're both Canadian, but I never received any love from them. Oh, that's an option to join.
Well, I had previously, I had been part of Air Cadets early on.
Okay.
There was a big gap between Air Cadets and joining the reserves, probably 4 or 5 years, like super young. And that recruitment happened at a school where somebody had come in and talked about it, and this is before I started going down that other path.
Yeah.
And then I, if I can recall correctly, I think they were doing a marketing campaign at the same time where my guidance counselor had most likely seen that and was in a conversation with me, and so they just kind of
that makes sense.
The timing was just, I think, perfect.
Makes sense because I was never privy to any introduction to the military, so I'm just wow, because the guys in the States, I talk to them and say, well, when you're finished high school, it's college, university, a job, and the military. Like the military is a major option when you finish high school in the United States, whereas Canada, I never heard about that option, right? So, Peg, jump in and ask Shawn.
My brother the same, although my brother, after finishing high school, went to sign up and was told he couldn't because he was too tall. And they didn't have beds long enough for him, so, at the time, so he wasn't allowed to be in it. But he wanted to be. My father fought in World War II. Lots of my family members were in various wars from World War I onward, and so I know that the men and women in our family, because my aunt was on the B-52 bomber in World War II, so it was an option.
So I know you served from 96 to 2007. Do you want to share some of those experiences? I know you said you served in Afghanistan, and I know you were attached to the big planes.
So 96, joined the reserves, did that for a couple of years, just getting a feel for it. Really changed my life in the sense where there was mentorship, there was leadership, there was camaraderie, which I not really had to that level at that point. So it stuck really well. Shortly after there, 3 years, I think it was, 1999, I ended up going full-time regular force up to Meaford, which is where our battle school is. And then going to my home battalion, which was the 3rd Battalion, which is a parachute battalion. It was an offshoot of the Airborne Regiment when the Airborne Regiment had been disbanded. So they had when they were disbanded, they kind of went 3 ways and all that sort of stuff. So within my unit, we had a parachute attachment, we had a air mobile attachment, amongst other things. I wasn't part of the para company. I was their neighboring November company, which was air mobile, mostly stuff with helicopters and all that sort of stuff. But everybody within within 3RCR had an opportunity to take the course and get jumps in and jump frequently, which was pretty cool and exciting.
And I like the way you said that you shared, like there's 7 or 8 other nations that were with the Canadians over in Afghanistan.
Correct. So Bosnia was the same. Bosnia, when I was there in 2001, that was my first deployment. There were multiple nations there at that time. Not as many as there were in 2003, 2004 during my Afghanistan deployment. At that point, there was 8. There was Germany, France, U.S., UK, the Gurkha Regiment we talked about, and then a few more that I can't recall. But I didn't see them too often.
Okay. And was there a reason when was there a time that came where you said I've just had enough, or they said you've had enough, or like how did that happen? How did the withdrawal?
In terms of me getting out of the military?
Yeah,
or?
yeah.
I wanted to start a family.
Okay.
And during my rotation to Afghanistan, we lost a couple guys. When I got back, we were still losing guys, and I knew that if I were to go back over again, the chances of me not coming home were high.
Mm-hmm.
And so, knowing that I wanted to start a family, that was huge for me because I didn't really have that growing up. I had to make a decision.
Okay.
And that was stay in and continue to deploy and have a great career, which it would have been, or get out and start again and build a family and build the life that I wanted. So that was just a decision that I had to make.
And did you find the transition out of military life into civilian life? Did you find that difficult, or how was that for you?
I wouldn't say I found it difficult, but I will say that I was underprepared for it in the sense of I didn't know what it is that I was going to do. I had all these skill sets that that are kind of bred into you or beat into you, and I didn't know what I was going to do or what I wanted to do, so I ended up pushing a wheelbarrow for like $13 an hour trying to figure it out, building backyard swimming pools.
Okay.
But we have this assertiveness, we have this get her done attitude, and I basically hired myself in a line at a Home Depot. I saw some guys and they looked like they did some construction stuff, and I needed a job, so I just turned around and said, "Hey, are you guys hiring? I work hard." They're like, "Well, that's interesting."
Wow.
We are actually hiring, and I started the next day.
That's a great sales pitch.
And that's kind of been my motto: take the job, figure it out later. In everything that I've applied myself to.
Thank you. Want to jump in?
Well, I'd like to talk about how we first met, because I think that's an important part of the relationship that we've enjoyed, and I think it's also part of how I also got into doing this with veterans as well.
Okay.
Because I saw the frontline workers needing more than was being offered on the medical sense. So will you explain to all of our listeners and viewers how we actually met more than a decade ago now?
Yes.
Through your volunteer work at school.
Being a veteran, my children were very young, and there was a Remembrance Day ceremony happening, and I honestly don't remember how that started. Part of it was just wanting to get more involvement in the school and kind of be there for the kids, and the Remembrance Day thing just kind of kicked off. And I believe you and Michael were at that Remembrance Day ceremony where I spoke, and then we just started talking shortly thereafter, and we have become great friends since then and done all sorts of stuff together, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely, and our girls are also friends. Which
Yes,
is really
still
nice
to this
too.
day, which is
So,
pretty cool.
yeah, even though they have had other ways to go, they still maintain that relationship. So those last for a lifetime, I think.
I actually saw they're working together today. I saw them this morning, which is pretty cool.
Yes, so this morning you were volunteering at school, and tell us about the aspect of your speaking to young men about what you were doing.
So they had a speaker that they had scheduled, but for some reason, unbeknownst to me, he wasn't able to attend. So Sienna, like she always does, volunteered my services. She asked me first.
We call it voluntold.
Exactly. And so when it comes to this kind of stuff, I am comfortable speaking in front of people. So I was like, sure, let's talk about it. And then the topic, I didn't really know what it was at that point until later on, where it was they had myself and a female speaker speaking about similar topics, but to each of their audiences. And mine was about healthy masculinity and what that means in terms of that silent strength. And you don't always need to be the loudest person in the room to be the strongest person in the room. And it's a military kind of thing where the strongest person you'll find isn't always the one that looks the strongest. it's often going to be that one sitting, in the corner or against the wall watching.
That was my dad actually. My dad was in the back all the time. Big George, as they called him, my dad. And the same what you're describing. Yeah.
There's a quote that I like, and I read it today, is that don't underestimate my silence for weakness. It's the lion's silence, not his roar, that warns you of danger, which I thought was pretty cool. And it was fun today because young men these days need to understand that strength isn't about being loud and performance and all that sort of stuff. It's about knowing your role and protecting and being there and being ready and being accountable was one of the big messages today as well.
How would you decipher from that, say a guy is like the valedictorian, he's the quarterback of the team, he's the best looking guy in the locker room, he's the best personality, like he's just the guy. And sometimes when you're the guy, you're just out there. Like your personality is just overflowing. How do you sort of tell those type of people? Like a Tom Brady, like everything Tom Brady touched, it turned to gold. How do you tell that person to, hey, maybe calm your personality down a little bit?
Stay grounded.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is, as they become young men, it's quite simple. Can you look yourself in the mirror and would you be okay with your daughter dating you?
That's a good example.
Would
Yeah.
you be okay with the person you are today being reflected in that individual and having her bring him home and seeing those attributes? Would you be okay with that? And if the answer is yes, then you're doing a great job. If the answer is, well, I'm not really sure about a few things, then maybe some self-reflection and working on some of those areas to improve yourself, to be just generally a better human being.
I love that. Let's do this.
I think that's why, in many cases, some men, as they have young daughters, are saying, you're not dating till you're 35.
On that note, let's take a quick break. You're watching Veterans Corner, and we're here with a veteran, Shawn Jeffrey. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Peggy Shepard, founder, CEO, and president at Wellbeing's Medical Center for Innovation and Excellence, where we have been serving specialized treatments for people who suffer from pain, addictions or dependency on medications, and mental health wellness. We want to make sure that for anyone who would like to titrate off of medications, we can work with your family physician or at least reduce them. And if you are addicted to illegal things like alcohol but find you'd like to cut back, please give us a call, because there are things we can do to help you cut back. To reach to us, please call 905-631-9355 or go onto our website at wellbeings.ca. We hope to hear from you soon if you need help.
Hi, I'm L.I.F. Frady, watching the Disability Channel, showcasing ability. Please stay tuned.
Welcome back to Veterans Corner. Very exciting show today. We have Shawn Jeffrey on the show today. Tell us all about his engagement, his speaking, time in the service, his personal life with his family. I know Peg has a wonderful question. We were talking about the male machoism or whatever. So Peg, take off and continue our questions.
So Shawn, I know when you were speaking to the young men today that they probably came out with something to be really thinking about, and hopefully that changes their interactions with young women and also with their own males, because I think it's important that we act respectfully all around. So what would you say today was one of the biggest things that you hope that people took away from your speech?
And that being, because the talk was about not just the former blueprint of what it meant to be a man and to have masculinity, but more so, what is the real understanding? And the real understanding is simply, you don't have to put on a performance, you don't have to be the funniest guy, you don't have to be loud, you just got to be accountable. And when somebody needs you, they can depend on you. And whether that's in the moment, whether there's something happening live in front of you and just speaking up to them and making sure that you're holding them accountable as to this isn't right, this isn't who we are as a society. You know, this behavior isn't, it's not what I would expect of myself in that scenario. And again, at the end of the day, just always doing right. And there was a couple kids that really latched onto that, and you could see them nodding their head in approval, but never. I could also tell that it's not something they'd heard before, which is unfortunate.
Well, I love what you said during our commercial break. What was that, Lewis? Now our producer asking our producer, what was you wanted him to re-mention?
Don't take my silence as weakness.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah. So the quote that I really like is because being silent and not performing and being the one that everybody sees as that macho bravado, the quarterback, for example, being more grounded. And as a leader, you want to make sure that you're listening more than you're talking, because it's the information that you're going to get from your subordinates or from the people around you. It's that information that's going to allow you to respond appropriately. And I always say, listen to understand, not to reply, and just be patient when you're talking to somebody.
And I love the way you said, would you date that person? Like, give it that comparison.
So that was in regards to how do you, what advice would you give somebody if they had a daughter and all that sort of stuff. And I always say that for someone who's in a position where they are maybe the quarterback and the valedictorian and king, prom king or whatever, you need to look at yourself in the mirror. And if the person looking back at you doesn't have the characteristics of somebody that, and some personal growth to kind of make some changes in your life, to become that person. Ultimately, when we get to that point where we're judged at the end of our time, we want to make sure that the person that is the reflection that's presented next to us, which is who you had the potential to become, is as close to who you actually are as possible. You're always working to grow to be, that individual who you aspire to be, or who's ordained of you to be.
So would this work into our children matter most kind of thing? Is that kind of part of it a little bit?
No. So our children matter most is actually quite the opposite.
Oh, okay.
It's I have my wife currently, and we have 4 children between the two of us, but we're a blended family.
Yeah.
And we both come from divorce. We both come from a failed relationship. We were very similar in the sense where we weren't the one who decided to leave, and we tried to fix, we tried to work on it, all that sort of stuff, and we both grew in that process. But for men, primarily, it's super challenging within the legal system. And Our Children Matter Most was a platform that I built, one to deal with all of the struggles that I was going through live and in the moment, just documenting when something happened, how I dealt with it, what research did I do, what books did I read, what did I work on personally to make myself better, to fix that problem. And so Our Children Matter Most is a platform designed to get the attention of primarily men who are going through that issue, because we need to get to them sooner rather than later. Because with the system the way it is, if they have any misstep in their behavior or their actions, the results are catastrophic in the sense it affects the children. And this is where the name came from. Our Children Matter Most. It doesn't matter, what your two differences were in that relationship. You need to get past that, and you need to make sure that your children are what matter most. And it was designed to help them navigate some of those challenges.
That's so important because divorce, it can be so messy. And who suffers? The kids.
Children.
The
And
kids.
I'll tell you this, I've seen a lot of stuff in my time with the military and in my youth and all that sort of stuff, but the hardest thing I've ever gone through is potentially losing my children.
Yeah, divorce. Yeah.
Outside of my own causes. So it affected me. I would say that I don't have PTSD from the things that I've seen and done both in the military and as a youth, But I might have a little bit from that, because there's an unconditional attachment to your children that when you suffer that fear of losing that, that just breaks them in. And so the program is designed to get to them before that happens, so that we can salvage whatever's there to be salvaged.
Jump in, Peg.
Well, and I recognize too that children do suffer PTSD or PTSI from those relationship breakups as well.
Correct.
And it's very difficult, and the children, I think, most often think, if I just did something differently, I could fix it, right? And that's sometimes the burden that they place on themselves, but they're not old enough yet to understand.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate.
And my mission is to get to the parents before they let their, I don't want to use the word hatred for each other, be more powerful than their love for their children, because you need to love your children more than you've grown to hate or dislike your partner.
Or disdain.
Yeah. And so get to them before that happens, so that we can salvage the youth of those children.
So let me mention something. So I've been gauging things as a producer in talk shows. I've been listening to you speak, and I want to take it back to the start of the interview where you said you were a youth and you were going down the wrong path, right? And when your counselor introduced you to join the military, if you didn't join the military, do you think you'd be doing what you're doing today?
No. So just to kind of segue, I do consult in the health and safety space, so I wear orange PPE all the time. To answer your question, if I had continued down that path, I'd be wearing the same outfit, just without the yellow and gray stripes. I was headed down a dark path of substance and crime and all that sort of stuff.
So it gave you structure, it gave you discipline.
It pulled me out of the life that I was heading towards. It gave me exactly that: structure, discipline, purpose. Mentoring in terms of like the parental absences that
Do me a favor, look into the camera and talk to today's youth, because you know how many youth today are in trouble, right, with substance abuse and alcohol and divorce, and give a little message to somebody who needs some help.
So my message to those individuals, whatever age that you are, is that there is a purpose out there for you, and that if you have enough wherewithal to know that you're headed down the wrong path, simply ask for help. Whether you're a young boy or a young girl, or kind of what I spoke on today was quite simply, it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to be invincible. Healthy masculinity, especially when it comes to young men, means that you know yourself enough, or you know yourself enough to want to be more than you currently are. And sometimes to do that, no matter how old you are and no matter how secure you are in yourself, you have to ask for help. And I've got friends that I've known in the military, and I spoke about my friend Mark today when I was speaking to those kids. He was a guy that would literally carry you on your back if he had to, regardless if you asked for it. But at the same time, he was an individual who, for some reason, felt he couldn't do the same. Don't let that be you, and don't let that take you down a path that wasn't made for you, or wasn't something that you wanted to do with your life. And if you've made mistakes and all that sort of stuff, it's okay to start over. It's never too late to start over, as long as you're heading in the direction that serves you, and ultimately what I would think is serves others.
That's great. Thank you so much for Shawn. I really appreciate sharing that. I think that's very important.
Well, it is, and actually, just above your head, there's one of the artworks that we have up here, and it says, each day you wake up, you're given a new blank canvas. It's up to you to paint the picture for your new day. Choose to be a well-being. And every day you have to ask for that. And I think one of the things that we need to teach in resiliency is that there are no perfect people, and it's not a crime or a shame to ask for help. Because when you do, you can strengthen your own self and be the better you.
The only person you really have to hold yourself accountable to at the end of the day is yourself. Mm-hmm. Your image of yourself, the purpose or the expectations you have on yourself, and whatever it is that you want to do. Social media is terrible, especially with the youth and adults. Like it's a phenomenon that presents a false image of reality, and unfortunately, the youth being so malleable, they fall into, the the trap of, oh, I see this individual leading this type of life, but it's only it's only a look through the lens that they've allowed you. And I talked about this today. Don't be fooled by, the glossed up image of what you see. Right? There's more behind that, and that's kind of what led into that talk about even bullies have problems. And they have issues, and typically their issues, I would think, are bigger than most because it's the reason that they're doing what they're doing.
Correct.
I had a bully growing up. I was picked on, I was teased, and I remember his name and I know exactly what he looked like. But if you looked at him now, the roles would be reversed. And what I learned later in life is that his father was an alcoholic and would come home
Abuse him.
and beat him and his brother. And so he only did what he learned.
Yeah.
And so I was able to, through that, forgive him for that, and look at the hard lessons that I had to learn as a kid. Not really learning the lesson until later on in life when I found that out about his childhood, knowing that, okay, well, it's made me who I am today, and my ability to see that and forgive him for that is also work towards me building my own expectation of my character and my integrity.
Well, this is great, Shawn. We really appreciate you coming on the show today. Again, you're watching Veterans Corner with a veteran, right? We have Shawn Jeffrey telling us all about his service career and now his personal career. Shawn, if people want to get in touch with you, is there anywhere they could go if they're looking for help or just looking to contact you? Maybe they want to reach out. Another veteran might want to reach out and talk to you personally.
So there's multiple ways. It really depends on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. I don't know if I can drop a line here with an email address. We can start there, and just if you have any concerns or if you're interested in any of the areas that I've kind of talked about, whether it be money and finance, because I do deal in insurance and investments and all that. That's kind of my passion now. Because I help more people today doing that than I ever done before in the military. Because I get to help as many people as I want on a daily basis. So I can drop my email to you guys, and if you have any questions, you can reach out. If you're more interested on kind of my community work, whether that's talking to young men and developing their sense of self, or maybe working towards, we actually never talked about the boys camp that I wanted to get started. Any of those things, by all means, just email me. You can find it in the link to this interview, and we can go from there.
That's great. Really appreciate it. What do we want to do? You want one more word from you, Peg, before we take a quick break?
Well, one quick word. Shawn, I do want you to talk about the Camp for Boys, because it's a vision. A lot of us share that. And when we join forces together, we can make it a reality. So after we come back from the break, let's talk about that.
So let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll end it with Shawn telling us about the camp. You're watching Veterans Corner. I'm your host, Jay Stoyan, with my co-host, Peggy Shepard, and we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Marie Norris. I'm going to sing you a little bit of New to Old School a cappella. All right. If you never sipped a Coke from a cold glass bottle, drank water from a garden hose. If you're an addict, praying static, craving that country gold. If you never, ever wrote a love letter or used a phone with a dial, let me say a little personal touch never goes out of style. I might not play as fast as you, but I'm still having a ball. You just need some time to catch up to me, that's all. Let me bring you up to speed on cool. I can tell you're new to old school. Thanks. You're watching TDC.
Welcome back to Veterans Corner. I'm your host, Jay Stoyan, with my co-host, Peggy Shepard. On the show today, we have veteran Shawn Jeffrey telling us all about his services and all about his civilian career. Before we hand it back off to Shawn, he's going to tell us about another great mission that he has going. I just want to thank our three guests today. I want to thank veteran Scott Snow. He shared his wonderful story, unfortunate story, where he broke his back and neck at the Invictus Games. So thank you for sharing that, because that change things around for the insurance for veterans across the world. So thank you for sharing that, Scott. I also want to thank Rocky Blyer, 4-time Super Bowl champion. He was on our wellbeings.ca show today, telling us all about his career, how he got drafted. So Rocky's on the Pittsburgh Steelers. He made the team in 68. Come 69, he gets drafted and has to go to Vietnam. Gets injured to the point where the doctor said, you shattered your leg and your foot. You'll never be able to walk again. He went back. The Pittsburgh Steelers cut him. The owner said, come back. We owe you. Go into rehab for a year. Not rehab, but injury rehab, right, for his injuries.
Physical rehab.
Yeah, physical rehab. Spent 2 years physical rehab, and the Pittsburgh Steelers gave him a spot on the roster, and then he came back and was like a 4-time Super Bowl champ. And then we got Shawn Jeffrey tell us about his story. So such an inspiring day from 3 bruisers, 3 veterans. Like, come on. So if you got a story out there, we want to hear it. If you're a veteran, if you're somebody who's struggling, give us a call. We want to help you. Let's turn it over to Shawn for one more inspiring story.
So the boys camp was inspired by my upbringing. Like I had mentioned before, my mother was on welfare. We didn't have a lot of money. Through that process of being the poor kid at school, I was picked on and teased and all that sort of stuff. And I'm not saying that for because I'm looking for a pity party. All that. Those were great lessons for me. Having to go through all of that, it set me up for what I look at now as some of my greatest successes, because it gave me this tough skin that I needed later in life. Now, as I joined the military and got a lot of that experience, there were a lot of different skill sets that were developed within that process that once I was out of the military, lied dormant on the bookshelf collecting dust, that I look at as some of the greatest things that I've ever done in terms of, like, you know, reading a map and compass, navigation, rappelling, not jumping out of airplanes, because you can't do that in the business model I'm working at, but all sorts of those things that turned me into an adventurous, outgoing, hardworking young man. And so what I want to do, and I have a business model all built up, and I've gone as far as finding a law firm to represent me as I develop and grow into a charity, is I want to give back to youth that were very similar to me. One, being underprivileged and not having the same opportunities that a lot of kids have. 2, being those youth that may be heading down the wrong path and, you know, need a firm voice or a strong hand to kind of guide them and push them in the right direction. So that in essence is me giving back to the youth of society today. But at the same time, there's a whole bunch of veterans out there who have released, retired, earning a pension, living a life searching for purpose. So part of it is me wanting to give them a platform where they can come back and they, with me, can guide and coach and mentor and bring leadership and guidance and mentorship and fatherly type role models to these young boys who may be lacking some of that. So it's kind of a triple-edged sword, where you're giving back to youth that can't afford things, you're giving back to youth that are heading down the wrong path, but then repurposing our soldiers who come back, whether, you know, fully intact physically, mentally, or maybe they have some challenges, just giving them purpose to give back. Because what I've seen is there are a lot of vets who just the absence of purpose has caused collapse within them, and I think that would using them to heal each other would be a great thing, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. It's been a project that I've been working on probably for the last 20 years. Sometimes it comes off the shelf, but then it goes back on, and, you know, as I build and grow myself, becoming who I need to be to fulfill this dream. I'm hoping one day that we can get it off the ground and give something back together.
I'm sure we can. And I think one of the initiatives that Jay and I started together is the Get Healthy and Get Working program. And again, that's about revitalizing and giving purpose to veterans so that they can go out and do these things. So it's possible that they could do all kinds of things like mentoring the young men as well.
Yeah, so maybe we can definitely support you on that endeavor for sure, Shawn. Like we would love to, because yeah, we're creating opportunities, we're creating employment, we're getting you healthy, and we're creating a purpose. People need a purpose in life. You need a reason to get out of bed.
Correct.
Right? Every morning you need a reason, and you want to be excited. Get out of bed and go, okay, I'm ready to be productive today. And I think that's all people are asking, especially, I don't know, like especially people who are just they don't want to stay. Like COVID just destroyed people, right? So I think everybody's still trying to get back and 5 days a week and go back to work and some of them some normalcy a little bit, right? So we really thank you for being on the show today, Shawn. We're going to have you back again. You're watching Veterans Corner. I'm your host, Jay Stoyan, with my co-host, Peggy Shepard. Until then, we'll see you next time.